on my bloody nose.
Oh, great start, Nigel. Welcome out to Champions, everybody. YouTube friends, drop in your comments and questions in the chat and make sure you smash the like and subscribe buttons as we talk with the man, Fabrizio Romano. He's in the house. Here we go. I am Ian Joy. I'm joined by the House of Champions dream team once again. It's Jonathan Johnson over there in Paris, Nigel Rio-Coker somewhere in London, Miami, wherever he spends his time nowadays. He's got multiple houses, so just happy to have him on House of Champions. Fabrizio Romano, you are the most followed man on the internet, but also the hardest working man on the internet right now. How are you doing, buddy?
All great. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be here with you, with the guys. Always a pleasure.
All right. Thanks to everybody out there for joining us. Please make sure you drop in a question. If you have a question for Fabrizio or Jonathan or Nigel, drop it into the comments right there. We'll try to get to the best ones as quickly as possible. Let's begin with Diego Simeone and Fabrizio. What is the latest on Simeone? Obviously, the news coming out here that he could be on his way out at the end of the season. Update us all, please.
Yes, this is a possibility. This is a possibility for the end of the season. We know that was a really complicated season for Atletico Madrid, not just in the Champions League, but in general. There is a feeling around the story of Diego Simeone and Atletico Madrid that maybe we are at the end, that things are not as few years ago when Simeone was doing an incredible job at Atletico Madrid. So after many and many years together, there is this possibility of Simeone and Atletico Madrid parting ways in the summer. We have to see on the financial side of the story. We have to remember that Diego Simeone is one of the best paid, if not the best. I have to check the final updates after the new contract of Pep Guardiola, but he's one of the best paid managers in the world for more than 20 million euros net per season. So it's a crazy salary. Of course, it's a pre-COVID salary. So football is now completely changing on that, but it was a huge contract. So we have to say how financially they can manage it, because the contract of Simeone is until June 2024. So they have one more year together, potentially. But I'm told that this is a possibility for Simeone to leave the club at the end of the season. Again, it's not something 100% decided yet. They have to discuss. They are now working together on the market. For example, Joao Felix left Atletico Madrid because of his relationship with Simeone. So it means that Simeone is still influential at Atletico Madrid, but we know that the future could be different.
What do you expect to be Simeone's next move, Fab? Do you think that he'll stay at club level, or do you think that he could be tempted by something internationally? Because obviously Simeone has quite a storied playing history in Italy as well. He has experience there many years ago. Obviously, football has changed a lot. Italian football has changed a lot since he was last there. Do you think there's a possibility that we could see him, go to one of his former clubs? I don't know, maybe a Lazio or Inter Milan?
The problem is the salary. Lazio and Inter will never pay 20 millions for a manager per season, but not even 10 at the moment. So I think it's on Simeone to decide what kind of decision he wants to make on his future about the contracts. Because if he wants to continue with that kind of salary, I think there are maybe 4 or 5 clubs in the world where he can go. Otherwise, if he wants to try something different, for example, I don't know, Inter or any other club, it has to be for a completely different salary. Inter can't pay that money, but Italian clubs in general are not going to pay that money for a manager. And also, at the moment, all the top clubs have very clear ideas on the managers for the future, because, of course, Simeone is not going to any other club in Spain. I think in Germany, Bayern are going to continue with Nagelsmann. In France, at the moment, Galtier is doing a great job and they're really happy with him. In England, Pep Guardiola extended his contract. Ten Hag is untouchable. Arteta, no words for his fantastic job with Arsenal. So I think there are not so many clubs at the moment available for Simeone. So maybe it could take some time. But again, nothing is still 100% decided with Atletico Madrid. So let's wait and see.
Fabrizio, my Italian brother. Question for you. We've seen a lot of ins and outs. What are you laughing for? If I was born again, I'm going to be born Italian. I keep telling you that. I got along so well with all my Italian teammates. They love me. Anyway, Fabrizio, question for you. We've seen a lot of ins and outs at Chelsea. What can you tell me with something I saw recently about Mario Pochettino's name being mentioned at Chelsea? So is Graham Potter now under pressure? And could that be another club that potentially might even look at Diego Simeone?
At the moment, I think they are not, from what I'm told, they are not thinking of replacing Potter with any other manager. They want to back the manager. They want to protect the manager. And when I say they, it's not just Todd Bowley and the owners, but it's also on the board. They now have a new board. They're going to have 2 new directors in February. Joe Shields coming from Southampton, Lawrence Stewart coming from Monaco. And they all together want to protect the manager. They know that changing managers every 6 months is not the solution. They want to protect Graham Potter. So at the moment, they're not speaking to any manager. To your question, Pochettino is one of the managers they discussed internally when they decided to change Thomas Tuchel. So it's true that they had an admiration for Pochettino, but then no more contacts after they appointed Graham Potter. The only idea is to go with Graham Potter. So at the moment they are backing him, and honestly, I don't see any change, any imminent change for February or March. Then at the end of the season, we will see. But at the moment, everything points to Graham Potter as the manager of Chelsea also for next season.
Also, on the topic of Pochettino and Simeone, is there a possibility that, assuming that Simeone does ultimately move on, that Pochettino could perhaps be one of the candidates to replace him in Madrid?
It could be, but I think the most likely name could be Luis Enrique, from what I'm told. After he left the Spanish national team, I'm told some into the club at Atletico Madrid really appreciate Luis Enrique, so he could be one of the options. For Pochettino, there are many possibilities because he's exploring the market. He's waiting to make his next move after the PSG experience. And so let's see if Atletico Madrid will think about him. But the name I'm hearing is more on Luis Enrique. But again, let's see what happens with Simeone, because the legacy between Simeone and Atletico Madrid is something really special. So let's see how the second part of the season will go. But at the moment, if I have to make a name today, I would say Luis Enrique.
Just real quickly, I just want to let everybody know you're watching House of Champions. It's Fabrizio Romano, Nigel Reo-Coker, and Jonathan Johnson in the house. We see all of your comments, a lot of Chelsea fans in the house. We also have a fan for Nigel Reo-Coker. The Almighty Blues FC says, "What's up, Reo-Coker, big man? What a player you were," with a little love heart as well. Obviously, a lot of love for Fabrizio Romano as well. Let's turn our attention to Joao Felix, Fabrizio, making this loan move to Chelsea Football Club. Give us the details of the contract. Great stuff by you, obviously breaking the news. How did this move come about? I also find it really interesting that he extended his contract at Atleti.
Yes, first of all, they decided to go fast on this deal because of the injuries. Today, Graham Potter in the press conference a few minutes ago said that Pulisic will be out for a couple of months. Sterling will also be injured and so unavailable for some weeks. So they had many injuries. The situation at Chelsea is really complicated. They are not winning games. And so they wanted to help the manager, bringing in an important player like Joao Felix. They had a conversation with his agent, Jorge Mendes, almost 2 weeks ago, as Man United and Arsenal too. So all the three clubs spoke to Jorge Mendes. But Chelsea were not 100% convinced, not about the player, because they appreciate the player, otherwise they were not going to sign him, but about the conditions of the deal. 11 million euros loan fee, salary covered until the end of the season, taxes of the deal of Chelsea, so a really expensive deal for a 6-month loan. This is why Chelsea were waiting on that one and saying, okay, let's see later in the window, not now. But then with all the injuries and with a really complicated situation around Graham Potter, with a lot of pressure around the manager, they decided to go fast on Monday to contact Atletico Madrid and the manager of the player and to pay what Atletico Madrid asked for Joao Felix. Again, 11 million euros loan fee, the world salary covered, and agreement with the player. He wanted to try this Premier League experience. So this is why it was a really fast deal, because of the injuries and to help the manager with a new solution. Why he extended the contract with Atletico Madrid? Because there is no buy option in the contract with Chelsea. So Atletico Madrid wanted to feel protected, like saying to Joao Felix, okay, we let you go on loan, but we want to make sure that you are coming back here and we are not going to be in trouble with your contract extension in case you want to leave the club again in the summer. And so they agreed on a contract extension till 2027, also because we don't know who's going to be the manager next summer at Atletico Madrid. So this could be one point.
Fabrizio, I know you're not going to say it, but I'll say it. That's another panic move by Chelsea, but I'll leave it there. Last question for you from me, Fabrizio. A young player that not a lot of people are talking about, but I know well, I watched him, Danilo from Palmeiras. Was there any other suitors for him than just Nottingham Forest? Because I think he's a top player, and I knew there was interest a while ago from Arsenal. Was there any other clubs that come in for him, and do you think he's going to end up at Nottingham Forest?
Look, they're negotiating while we are speaking. I have my phone ringing with people calling me on this Danilo story because something is happening today. During the night, they negotiated with Nottingham Forest making a proposal, loan with obligation to buy around 19, 20 million euros. This proposal was received from Palmeiras, and they said, we're there, from what I know, they are not going to accept loan with obligation. They want a permanent move, which is basically the same. But when you have a loan with obligation, you have to include some clauses in the contract. And Palmeiras said, we want a permanent move immediately for Danilo or nothing. So at the moment, there is still no full agreement between clubs. I agree with you. This is a really interesting player. Very good player, especially for 20 million euros. He has a very, very great potential. I think it's a very interesting move for Forest, but it's not done yet. And they told me, keep an eye on Monaco, because Monaco are very good with young talents from South America. And now they're moving on Danilo, trying to hijack the move. And so let's see what happens in the next hours.
How busy do you expect Monaco to be between now and the end of the month, Fab, given that they've got the money from Badiashile?
I think they will be busy. Potentially for the new center back. Let's see what happens with the goalkeeper situation, because Bayern wanted Sommer, but there is no agreement with Borussia Mönchengladbach, and so Nubel could still be an option for Bayern to recall him, but they don't have any clause in the contract, and so they have to negotiate with Monaco. And so in that case, let's see who's going to be the new Monaco goalkeeper in case Bayern will decide to proceed for Nubel. So Monaco will be busy, and then I'm really curious to see this Danilo story, how it will finish, because it's a very good player, and Forest, Monaco are moving. So I think next 24, 48 hours will be crucial.
Go on, JJ.
And also, okay, well, I was going to say, as a follow-on from Monaco, there's been a lot of speculation about Paul Mitchell. Obviously, some big positions at some big clubs have sort of come and gone over the last year or so. You've had Newcastle, you've had Chelsea. Has there been any more sort of whispers within the industry potentially about his future? I know that a lot was made sort of in and around Monaco, that he wasn't at the recent Cup exit game against Rodez. So is there a possibility that he could be on the move? Because obviously that would hugely impact Monaco's transfer dealings, given how important that sporting director role is at that specific club.
Yes, I agree with you, and he's really highly rated. This is why we always had many rumors on Manchester United when Ralf Rangnick was there, his big friend Ralf Rangnick, but also with Chelsea when they decided to rebuild the board structure. So many links, but at the moment I'm told he's still having the full control of Monaco market. For example, on this Danilo deal, Paul Mitchell is actively working on that, and so I don't see him moving now. Let's see in the summer how the directors market will change. At the moment, it's something really quiet between the top clubs, and Paul Mitchell is one for top clubs, of course. So at the moment, it's a bit quiet. Let's see at the end of the season.
All right, let's get into it real quickly, Nigel, before you jump in here, because we've thrown 45 questions at Fabrizio from all different angles. Let's get back to Joao Felix move and the domino effect that it could have on the rest of the transfer moves. Obviously, Mudryk comes into play. We're seeing many names mentioned, but when you have a Joao Felix moving to Chelsea, you've got Christopher Nkunku already moving to Chelsea. You know, what kind of moves will be affected because of the Joao Felix move? I mean, in particular, I think a lot of people in the comments right now want to know what's happening with Mudryk, because there was rumors of going to Chelsea. Obviously, they have a lot of money to spend. Now it looks like he's kind of going to be pushed down towards Arsenal once again. Will that affect the price tag? And what is the domino effect now of Joao Felix making this loan move?
Yes, there are many changes after this move of Joao Felix to Chelsea. First one, about Mudryk. We have to clarify that for the player has always been Arsenal. The player always wanted Arsenal as priority. So on player side, nothing has changed. I see many rumors in the last 2-3 days saying he's almost done, Mudryk to Arsenal. At the moment, he's not done. At the moment, it's a negotiation between Arsenal and Shakhtar. They are speaking, they are negotiating. The player wants Arsenal, and this is helping Arsenal in the negotiation. They are confident, they are optimistic, but it's not a done deal yet. Arsenal know that Shakhtar want 100 million euros for Mykhailo Mudryk. So at the moment,
is that crazy though, Fabrizio? Sorry to interrupt you, but 100 freaking million euros. I know he's good, but he's played a bit of Champions League football. He's clearly very popular on social media, but consistency is key for someone who's such a youngster. To spend that type of money, do you think we get 100 million for this guy?
I'm not sure they will get 100 million. I think they will, if they want to sell Mudryk this window, they have to accept something less, close to 80, 85. But honestly, if you want my opinion, I think Shakhtar have been fantastic in the negotiations, also in the summer, because in the summer, in a really difficult political situation and football situation, of course, because it was a terrible situation around Shakhtar, when they got 30 million euros, 35 from Everton, I think all the other clubs in other position with that kind of situation around the club were going to accept 35, 40 million euros for a player like Mudryk, who is a very good talent, but he didn't have this Champions League exposure during last summer. And they said, no way, we want way more than this. So they were always waiting and waiting and waiting. And at the end, now they were right. So let's see what they will do now in January on this negotiation. Also, we have to clarify that the player wants to go. The player wants to go to Arsenal. The player is obsessive with Arsenal. So there is also kind of respect to the player. This is why I feel that at the end, they can accept something less than 100 million euros. But as of now, they are still asking for 100 million euros. Let me just say that Arsenal are really confident because they're speaking to Shakhtar every single day. They are pushing in this negotiation. They're trying to find a way with bonuses, with percentage on future sale. So to create a package to give Shakhtar what they want, but not guaranteed 100 million. So talks ongoing, Arsenal are confident, but it's not done yet. And to your question, for the domino, we said about Mudryk, Man United will go for Weghorst. Now this deal is very advanced. And Atletico Madrid have to replace Joao Felix, and the player is Memphis Depay. They are negotiating with Barcelona for Memphis Depay.
Is it Arsenal or is it London? I'm just saying, Fabrizio. Anyway, my last question, another top talent I'm a big fan of. I've stuck my neck out. I've said this, Fabrizio. I gave my point in saying that Jude Bellingham, in my opinion, I think this young man should go to Real Madrid. I think it's the club for him. It will be beneficial for him and beneficial for England. What's the progress on Jude Bellingham?
It's going to be slow. I know that we have many stories every single day on Jude Bellingham. It's normal because, as you mentioned, he's a special player, and so it's normal to have many stories, but it's not something to be decided now. Borussia Dortmund are really strong on their position. They want big money. They will take long on the negotiations with all the clubs. So there are 3 clubs now really pushing. Jurgen Klopp for Liverpool. He really wants Jude Bellingham as top priority for the summer. This is why Liverpool didn't move for Enzo Fernandez in January transfer window, because they are obsessed with Jude Bellingham. So in the summer, priority Liverpool for them is Jude Bellingham. Real Madrid, because for sure Real Madrid will be in the race. For sure Real Madrid are pushing. They're speaking to people close to Jude Bellingham. And then keep an eye again on Man City, because Man City have very good relationship with Borussia Dortmund. They are trying to speak to people close to the player. The father of the player is the only one who's taking care of the negotiation, Marcus Bellingham. So there are no agents involved. Exactly. Yeah. And so
he's an ex-police officer. I know
exactly.
I got friends. I'm not at Fabrizio's level, but I know.
And so discussions are ongoing, but everything is still open. Nothing is decided. So Liverpool, Man City, and Real Madrid.
Fab, obviously, it's been a busy couple of hours for Villa, close to completing the deal for Real Betis's Moreno. But there's also been some interesting rumours starting to surface that Guendouzi and Emery could be reunited at Villa Park. Do you have anything for us on that? Because I know that Villa Twitter in particular has been set alight by these rumours sort of in the last 12 to 24 hours.
Yes, it's true that Aston Villa want the player. They spoke to people close to the player. It's true, as we know, that Unai Emery is big fan of Guendouzi, so they have this great connection, and this is why they had some contacts. As of now, Olympique Marseille have not received any official bid. So I was checking also a few minutes ago, and Marseille are still waiting to see if Aston Villa will arrive with a big proposal. Villa are working on it. They want to make an opening bid to understand also the Olympique Marseille position. They already invested money on Malinowski, so this is why Villa are going to try for Guendouzi. It's true that he's a target, but at the moment, there is still no direct negotiation between clubs because Marseille are waiting for Villa to move. So let's see how it will evolve, but I think Aston Villa will be really busy in the next days. They need new players. As you mentioned, Alex Moreno is going to be the first one because the deal is done. It will be announced, I think, today or tomorrow, but everything is done. They are moving also on other targets. Let's see what happens with Danjuma from Villarreal. He's appreciated by many clubs in England. He could leave on a loan with a buy clause included in the contract. Unai Emery knows the player very well, but also Everton want him. I think could be a very interesting move for the January final weeks. And so I think Villa will be really busy.
All right, we got 2 or 3 minutes left with Fabrizio Romano before we do go to break. Let's get to some of the questions from the comments. Finn Thomas asking, can we get some Tottenham news from Fabrizio? Please talk about the Spurs. Anything there? Anything happening with Spurs right now? Obviously, we know what's happening off the field, but what about on the field as well? Any transfer news?
It's not an easy market for Tottenham because, as Antonio Conte always says, they have to find young players. This is the vision of the club, but also with normal salaries and not with crazy fees. So it's not easy at all to find these players, especially in the January transfer window. A player they love is Pedro Porro from Sporting, this right back who is considered perfect to play with Antonio Conte in a 3-5-2 system. So this is why Tottenham are in direct contact with his agents, in direct contact with intermediaries to take care of the deal. They need some push because it's not easy to convince Sporting. It's not easy. They have this release clause in the contract, 45 million euros. And when in November they extended the contract of the manager, Ruben Amorim, they promised to him that they only sold players for the full release clause value, 45 million euros or nothing. So at the moment, Sporting insists on that money. But Tottenham are trying, Tottenham are pushing. The player is keen on the move. This is good news for Tottenham because it can help in the negotiation. And so Pedro Porro is the priority. Another name I would keep an eye on is Piero Hincapié as a centre-back, the Ecuador centre-back playing for Bayer Leverkusen, left-footed, very good player, also in Inter and Napoli list for the summer. He could be one of the targets for Tottenham. They're going to have a meeting in the next days to discuss about Piero Hincapié with people close to the player, but the target is for the summer more than for January. So let's see if they will try to anticipate the deal.
All right, there's another name that keeps coming up in the comments right now. Istatu Jabi continuously asking about Youssoufo Moukoko. We are all big fans of this kid at Borussia Dortmund. I obviously read the German media intensely, and his agent seems like an absolute idiot. He seems to be pushing this kid outside of Dortmund very quickly. It's like he's trying to force a move away from Dortmund. And Fabrizio, I don't know if you saw the comments from Jurgen Kohler, who mentioned if this kid wants to leave Borussia Dortmund and doesn't realize what he has, then let him go. Let him get out of here, which I think is the wrong way to go about it. This is a talented kid, but what do you think is the right move for him, and what are you hearing about Moukoko?
I think there is still a chance for him to stay at Borussia Dortmund. I know the feeling around social media is different, but from what I'm told, there is still a chance for him to stay and to extend his contract with Borussia Dortmund. There are conversations ongoing. Let me say there are also a lot of fake news around this boy, because we heard that he wanted a 10 million euros commission to sign a new contract, and I'm told this is absolutely not true. Moukoko never asked for 10 million euros commission, so I wanted to clarify that. He has a great relationship, especially with the manager, with Edin Terzic, great relationship. And this is why now there are conversations ongoing to try to change the situation and keep the player. It's true that Premier League clubs are approaching Borussia Dortmund. It's normal when you have this kind of wonder kid available on a free in the summer. You try to anticipate the deal in January and say this is why Premier League clubs are moving. But Borussia Dortmund these days and also in these hours are still speaking to people close to the player to extend his contract. So there is still a chance for Borussia Dortmund to keep Moukoko. My personal opinion, that would be absolutely the best solution for all parties involved. For Borussia Dortmund to keep a fantastic player, but also for him to stay in a club he knows, with a manager who loves him, who will give him opportunities. So I think this is the perfect way for Moukoko.
Finally, Fab, any update or concrete update on Weghorst? I know you alluded to it earlier. Is this one that's going to happen soon?
The deal is done between clubs and player. What is missing is that Besiktas have to find a replacement for Weghorst. What happened? That yesterday, Man United have been in direct communication with Besiktas, agreement to terminate the loan deal between Besiktas and Burnley. They're going to pay 3 million euros to Besiktas. Agreement between Man United and Burnley on a loan deal until the end of the season. Agreement with the player on the salary. Of course, Weghorst wants to join Man United, but Besiktas have been very clear. We will approve and sign this deal only if we find the right replacement. The player they want is Aboubakar from Al Nassr, which is part of the domino, because Al Nassr have to make some space, some room for Cristiano Ronaldo to be registered as soon as possible. And so Aboubakar is the top target for Besiktas. Negotiations are now ongoing, and so once Besiktas will sign Aboubakar or any other striker, it will be time for Man United to announce Weghorst as new striker.
Thanks to everybody out there for jumping in the comments. You are watching House of Champions. Fabrizio Romano just joining us. We're going to let him go right now. But before we let him go, Fabrizio, there's a great game on Friday in Serie A. It's Napoli against Juventus. Give me your prediction, please.
I see 1-1 draw.
That you can't say 1-1, Fabrizio. Yes. No, that's not okay.
Why not? Yeah, we'll see.
Come on, you're sitting on the fence right there. All right, we love you, man. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us here on House of Champions. An applaud here, a golf clap for Fabrizio for joining us. You can watch him every week, not only once, but you can watch him twice all the way through the transfer period. So make sure you tune in, but go follow Fabrizio all across his social media platforms. Incredibly active, breaking the best and latest transfer news. Sensational follow. But to everybody out there, make sure you stay with us. We've got more to come from us right after the break. House of Champions, we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Don't stop watching Leo Messi, the man, the myth, the legend, the GOAT. Utterly explosive. The UEFA Champions League. Stream PSG matches live February on Paramount+.
Well, don't miss out on any of this Serie A action. Follow some of the biggest stars in the sport, like Olivier Giroud, Rafael Leao, Lautaro Martinez, as they try to lead their teams to the Scudetto. How will the table change going forward? Which club has the best chance of winning it all? Which clubs have the most to lose? Find out all the answers and stream every single match from Italy's top soccer league live, only on Paramount+. Try 1 month for free with the promo code Serie A. Welcome back to House of Champions, everybody. It is Ian Joy alongside Jonathan Johnson and Nigel Rio-Coker, my co-hosts. Let's get into the discussion. Obviously, great to have Fabrizio right there. We could have thrown a million questions. In fact, we did throw a million questions at him right there. We're kind of all over the place, but there's so much to talk about, including JJ. A lot of news coming out of London with Tottenham Hotspur and new ownership. In particular, minority stake, am I hearing right now? So this week it has been stated that Spurs chairman Daniel Levy met with Qatari sports sports investment regarding potential ownership of the club, maybe in that minority stake ownership. JJ, give me more information if you have it. Obviously, you work pretty closely to the Qatari investment group. We both have. I think we all have. But in many ways, they're trying to get more part of soccer into their portfolio here.
Yeah, what we understand, and Ben Jacobs has done a great job in breaking this story, is that QSI are looking to sort of expand, their foothold in the footballing world. We've already seen them pick up a minority stake in Braga in Portugal. They won't be selling up at PSG. They will be opening up a slice of the club's capital. So there will be a minority stakeholder coming in, but they will not be selling PSG and trying to buy, another big Premier League club. What they are interested in is potentially taking, a minority share in another big club in the Premier League. And those talks have taken place, with Tottenham Hotspur. There's also been rumours about Manchester United and Liverpool. It's my understanding that while those sorts of discussions might be considered, they haven't actually taken place just yet. So this is kind of QSI dipping their toe in the water with regards to, some potential involvement in a Premier League club. There's been rumours in the past about the likes of Arsenal, about the likes of Leeds United, but this is sort of the first concrete evidence that QSI are about to potentially get serious about their interest in getting involved in the Premier League. So let's see where it leads. But for the moment, it seems like the discussions have at least taken place with Tottenham, and there is expected to be some developments over the coming months, notably regarding that minority stake in PSG and who comes in for that. Don't forget as well, PSG, are now looking for, a new management figure after Jean-Claude Blanc left or is leaving for Ineos, who of course own Nice. And their owner, Radcliffe, has also been looking at potential Premier League clubs as well. So all sort of connected and linked to the Premier League in some way.
Nigel, nothing to add?
Nothing to add, mate. JJ's covered it all there. All I was gonna say was just, for me, it seems like obviously to dip in a toe, and I think from outside looking in, it kind of makes me think of obviously the whole Saudi-backed takeover of Newcastle, and they're kind of maybe a bit worried about the blowback and sports washing and human rights issues and stuff like that. So I think it's more of a dip in the toe in a minority stake than going full for it, because if they wanted to, they could go full for it.
Yeah, but if you're a Tottenham fan, what are you thinking about this move, Nigel? Obviously, Daniel Levy's had control of this club for a while now, and they've been very successful. Obviously, business-wise, they've been very successful. You have to say they've been very good.
Business-wise, they've been successful, but what have they won? What's the trophy cabinet looking like?
Maybe that's the question, though, right? Is that the question? They're hoping to have a bit more money here. Maybe Levy's saying, "Hey, you know what? Give us more money. We can spend more of that," or is he going to take and pocket that money?
Ian, Tottenham have been a laughing joke for a long time in England about having such an empty trophy cabinet. From watching Arsenal be successful and all these other clubs do well, Tottenham have been the butts of laughing jokes for a very long time. All Tottenham fans will look to see is money, investments. We want to win something. They actually really want to win a trophy. But the problem is Daniel Levy has been at the club for so long, and literally it's been his club. And it's whether now there's going to be enough of a revolt by Tottenham fans. And it's when this money comes in, how that money is going to be used. Is it going to be used as an investment to actually get players in that they need, that they can feel they can compete with the top clubs and actually win something?
Mm-hmm. JJ, what does this mean for everyone involved in Tottenham right now, as far as you got the coach Conte, the rumors going around about Conte, whether he stays, whether he goes. Then you obviously have a gem of a striker in Harry Kane. Are they all looking at this movement outside? And maybe a Harry Kane's thinking, I can get paid even more so now that Qatar investment group's involved? Or sports investment?
I think, to be honest, we're approaching, or Tottenham are approaching a really sort of critical juncture, in what will be, their future. Because I think in terms of the ownership, also in terms of the project that, Conte has kind of come in for. I mean, you look at Conte's comments from, less than 2 weeks ago, where he's talking about whether Tottenham's project is to finish 5th, 6th, 7th, 4th, or, better. It's not exactly encouraging. There's a feeling really that Spurs have kind of gone as far as they maybe can under current ownership. So maybe there will be that encouragement, that optimism, potentially with new investment. But, also, I mean, if, it is still sort of Levy calling the shots, is there a feeling
it will be?
No, I mean for at least for the short to medium term, yeah, it's going to be. So, is there a feeling, is there confidence in the club that, sort of he can still lead, the club to success with a bit more backing, or, is there a need perhaps internally for, bigger overhaul than just a new minority stakeholder?
Let me jump in there quickly, Ian.
Go ahead.
This kind of reminds me a bit of, obviously, Levy being at Tottenham for so long and running the club the way he has. Reminds me of Arsene Wenger when he kind of overstayed at Arsenal, because he started to treat Arsenal Football Club like it's his own personal kind of wealth that he was building. Instead of competing for success, he saw success as being in the Champions League because of the financial rewards there. It wasn't about winning. So this reminds me of that same scenario in the sense of the longer that Levy stays there, the more it's going to be more of the same.
I think though the difference though surely is that Wenger, I guess, felt like a lot of what Arsenal were doing and how they were trying to evolve as a club stemmed out of what he'd managed to achieve on the pitch with the team. It wasn't his personal decision to expand the stadium. And at the end of the day, the stadium, no matter how good it is now, and I know that supposedly the atmosphere has improved massively over the last couple of months, obviously coinciding with an uptick in form as well. It wasn't Wenger's decision alone, to expand the stadium. And that stadium, that financial commitment was like a weight around Wenger and Arsenal's neck for years and years, and stopped them being able to compete in the way that they were when they were at Highbury, in their prime in the Premier League.
Let me ask you both a question this one, Nigel. I'll come to you first on this one. I was having a great conversation over about 25 pints while I was in the pub in Scotland. And we were talking about the Champions League. And back in the day, you used to have the champions of each league playing in the Champions League. Now you've got the top four from every league playing in the Champions League. It's kind of like a diluted down project for many a fan out there watching it now. You see a lot of teams from minority countries. Obviously, I love to see that, the minnow countries getting an opportunity. But now you're seeing teams no longer competing for the championship. Now you're seeing teams business-wise saying, all we need to do is to get into the top four. We financially make a lot of money. We can spend a bit of money to get back into the top four next year. And business-wise, it's a success. If you want to win a championship now, you're going to have to spend a hell of a lot more, like we are watching with a Paris Saint-Germain, like we are watching with a Manchester City, who are overspending. They're still a great business model, no doubt about it, worldwide. But for clubs like Tottenham, wouldn't it be considered a success? I mean, they're still in the Champions League. They're probably going to beat Milan in the Champions League and move on. Isn't that considered a trophy for them to get to the knockout stages and, we're in the Champions League next year?
No. Listen, you don't understand. I've got friends who are Tottenham fans, and I'm always making fun about them not winning anything. They are tired of the jokes. They're tired of even football analysis, pundits, they all make fun of Tottenham unless they played for Tottenham. But the reality of it, you look at Harry Kane, one of the best strikers that England have produced in a long time, top class striker, wants to stay at Tottenham, but he's not going to win anything. And people already making fun of him, saying you need to leave Tottenham to win something. They get in a good place and they, for somehow, some way, always seems to mess it up. Tottenham. That's the reality. They've always been a selling club from when I was younger. They always used to buy the best young British players. I'm talking about when you're talking about Aaron Lennon, Tom Huddleston, Michael Carrick. They bought so many players and they sold them on after. They've always been run as a business. That's the problem. So until they change that attitude, and again, when you say about winning the league was a big thing here, and it was subjective because it was more about the nationality. I knew from playing back in the day, Liverpool wanted to win the Premier League more so than win the Champions League. Even that great Champions League against AC Milan, they would have traded that in to win the Premier League title because they see Manchester United dominate the league so much. So depending on what nationality you are, it's a bit more subjective, but it's just basically the powerhouse that UEFA has become and how the Champions League has become. And let's watch FIFA. They're talking about revamping the World Club Championship. And again, that's to fight off UEFA's dominance of the Champions League and how big and popular it's become. But
don't you worry. That was another 25-pint conversation right there, what FIFA and UEFA are going to do going forward.
Going at it. But just to answer your question, Tottenham fans want to win something, Ian. Trust me. They don't see being in the Champions League and they don't see that as success.
Yep. Well, Rafa Cardenas jumping in and saying Tottenham need to move on from Levy. Nice stadium, but empty trophy cabinet, just as Nigel had mentioned right there. Tottenham fans very frustrated. BX Gunner 81, I'm sure he's not a Tottenham fan. Tottenham, long may it continue, with a little laughing emoji. I love it as well. Tottenham have wasted quality talent there. And I don't think there's any doubt about it. Tottenham is in the top 6 without winning anything. It's a magic trick that I've ever seen, if I've ever seen one. Listen, great comments coming in. Obviously, we all have our opinion on Tottenham and what they could do going forward. And we all know a Tottenham fan who is incredibly frustrated. They want to win something. And I'm getting fed up of obviously watching the business model of being get into the top 4 and we've done our job. And it's about money more than it is about winning. What are we in this for? For these ownerships? Sure, it's about money. But us, we're in it for the entertainment. That's why we love this beautiful game. We want to see people fighting. I want to see blood, sweat, and tears. I want to see teams absolutely going for it to win a freaking trophy.
Ian, I've got a question for you then, right? So you talk about Tottenham, they look at it as success. Look at what Newcastle have done in a short space of time without spending the same amount of money of Tottenham, but look how more complete Newcastle look and more equipped and adequate they are to maybe win something over Tottenham. And how many years have Tottenham been building for? So that's the thing you got to look at as well. That's the dynamic from a fan's perspective. You got to look at, if you're a Tottenham fan, you're going to be envious of Newcastle, what they've done by buying 2 or 3 players, getting the right manager in place, and they've got the right balance of players, and the coaching is right, the philosophy is right, and their recruiting is right. And they look like, Newcastle look like they can win something quicker than Tottenham can. And Tottenham have been building for how many years?
I hear you. No doubt about it. But let's not forget, they just did get knocked out of the FA Cup from, a team in a lower division. And let's not forget that, winning a trophy for fans in general, if it's an FA Cup, if it's a League Cup, it doesn't matter. It's a great day out. You know it well and truly. When you go to Wembley Stadium and it gives your fans, your people, and Newcastle fans more than anything, they live and breathe. It's a religion for them, their football club. So they want a trophy. They'd rather have a trophy than finishing top 4 every single year and just going into the Champions League. Sure, they want to see the best games. They already do. Premier League's the best league in the world. But at the end of the day, I think trophies are where it needs to be. Sorry, JJ, we're cutting you out of this conversation. Let's get over to France right now. I know you've got a full slate of schedules coming up, and I'm interested to hear which games you're going to and which games you got your eye on for this week. But let's talk about the mess that's going on with the French Football Federation. You just had breaking news coming in. Let us know what that news is and give us an update on what's happening with the French president here.
Yeah, so the situation is that Noël Le Graet is basically being put into retirement by the French Football Federation. There will be an interim replacement. The interesting thing in the communique is that not only is Le Graet's head rolling, actually his general director as well, Florence Hardouin, who's also being interviewed as part of the audit into the French Football Federation and their behavior over recent years, they will both be out of the picture until at least the results of the audit are known. But, let's be realistic. Neither of them are coming back from this. So that is Noël Le Graet being removed, for his own good, as well as for the good of the image of the French game and the French Football Federation. Basically because of, this explosion, this outpour of, disbelief, his comments against Zinedine Zidane. Now, this creates, an interesting dynamic. You've got the rest of his mandate, which goes up until 2024. So you're going to have an interim president who you would assume kind of gets made semi-permanent for the remainder of that mandate. But then you've also got, the French football team that have Didier Deschamps on this contract now until 2026, which was Le Graet's final act. And then you've got a French national team that needs a new captain as well. Kylian Mbappe obviously played a key role, in sort of bringing Noël Le Graet to be accountable for his comments. Does that make Kylian Mbappe now the most powerful figure in French football? I think there's a strong case for it.
Damn right it does.
JJ, with a comment like that, it was personal, right? This is beyond football. When a president of the French Football Federation says something like that about a legend that helped the nation win a World Cup, one of the greatest talents we've seen grace a football pitch like a ballerina for his size and his physique. That was.
Why do you think that is, though, Nigel? Why do you think that is? I mean, obviously, we have, and we must not forget that there's been a real issue with French football for generations now. It's like political bullshit.
It's got to be, Ian. It's one of those situations where probably things have been said behind closed doors that have never made it to the front of the media, and it's a bit of he said, she said to people within that environment. A bit of a similar to the entanglement of the US soccer situation, but I think that something's got back. 1 or 2 conversations might have been had, and when you make a comment like that and you make it public, it's personal. This isn't about Zidane, the manager or the football player. This is a personal comment directed because of a personal tension that they have with, well, he has probably with Zidane. That's what I think, JJ. What do you think?
I mean, I'm not going to try to defend Le Graet, but obviously the link between Deschamps and Le Graet was very, very strong. And I think probably where Le Graet was coming from and what he was trying to say is linked to the fact that he was probably trying to defend Deschamps, keep him in the strongest position possible. Because obviously Zidane in that context was being talked about as a potential replacement for Deschamps. But, it was massive, major disrespect. And I think that just reflects the way that Le Graet was behaving to pretty much everybody, within the world of French football, not just Zidane, whether it was current players. Let's not forget, this is the guy that, essentially kept Benzema out of the international picture for more than 5 years. Obviously, he had his reasons to do that. And that's not something that I don't think, Didier Deschamps disputed for a long while until Benzema's form became so good, that they had to bring him back into the fold. But I mean, the most interesting thing is what you guys are saying, sort of as outsiders looking in at the French Football Federation. Get this, reportedly, one of the candidates being lined up to potentially be Le Graet's replacement long-term from 2024 is Michel Platini, and Emmanuel Macron, the French president, has even personally got himself involved in trying to position him so that he can potentially sort of pick up the presidency position. Obviously, Platini is still serving the remainder of that ban from all of the controversy surrounding him and Blatter and the bribes. But there is a possibility that we now see somebody like Platini come back to the fore, with the French Football Federation presidency.
Long may it continue, the drama of French football. It wouldn't be French
it's a TV
football
show
without that soap opera. That is crazy.
It is, honestly. It's
well,
a TV
I mean,
show.
to be honest, Netflix have their next hit series right here.
Wait, I'm just saying, JJ, with all the legends that they've had, a modern day legend, you're telling me you couldn't put maybe Emmanuel Petit, Lilian Thuram, or one of those legends that have been in the game in that position now? Like, you look at other nations with what they've done. What's the Argentinian legend who played at Inter Milan, and he's obviously part of the Argentinian FA in a similar role?
Zanetti, or are you talking
Zanetti?
Yeah,
Zanetti does it for Argentina. You're telling me you're going to go way back old school with Platini?
Well, the funny thing about this is, a former West Ham player could have been in line to become the French Football Federation president had there been the sort of natural succession following Le Graet, because you've got Strasbourg president Mark Keller, who had a short spell with Blackburn Rovers at the end of his career. I think he played for West Ham, Portsmouth, and Blackburn. He's sort of the guy who was it was assumed that he would basically follow on from Le Graet, and then suddenly now you have somebody like Platini coming back into the reckoning, and that's assuming that Diallo, who's going to be the interim president at least until the results of the audit are known, doesn't find some way to sort of make his tenure permanent. So there's a lot of politics flying around that goes from club level to international level to the former players, but you're right, perhaps the French Football Federation need to look at some of the examples of some of these other footballing federations, and perhaps go with somebody who's not necessarily a star name, but somebody who will actually be sort of emotionally invested in the job, enough to do it well and to do the federation proud.
JJ, I just like someone who's not corrupt. Is that too much to ask?
Well,
come on.
I'll tell you what. I don't want to single out any federations, but I think you could probably count the number of presidents on one hand if you're cutting corrupt people.
But look, let's be real though. Before we wrap this up, and wait, let me just say something as well. Rocco, I meant to say Inter. If I said AC, that was a mistake. But I know Zanetti was an Inter legend, so I apologize for that. But for me, it's just funny though, because we talk about culture and football and different nations and how they approach it. The French way of approaching what's going on with France right now, for me, is just the French culture. For those of you who don't have friends from France, never been to France, or people that you're close to, that
who's your friend from France, Nigel?
You ball bag, and some other people that I've played with. So I understand the French culture and how it is. So there is a bit of arrogance in all these players, and there's
discrimination. Just fucking say it, Nigel. Discrimination.
Huh?
Discrimination. You're saying there's a lot of discrimination involved in French football. I mean, let's be honest. It's politics in France in general right now. It's discrimination all over
politics in it. But everything we're seeing, for me, just reflects French culture. in the reality of it, like I said, they've got so many qualified players who've won the World Cup for France and done amazing things, but yet they're not getting a look in. And you're going back to the old corrupt. How are you going to think about someone that's serving a ban from football? But anyway, let's just leave it, because you know why? It's just only going to be more entertainment for us the more the drama goes on in France. So at least we've got something to laugh about.
More for us to talk about. JJ, you got a question for me? Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, taking the conversation back to earlier when we were discussing Moukoko and Dortmund with Fab, I wanted to jump in, but obviously we're at the end of our time with Fab. Do you not think that Moukoko has kind of justification to feel a bit disappointed with Dortmund? I mean, obviously they've given him his chance to make his debut, but the Dortmund project hasn't exactly pushed on the last couple of years. I mean, obviously it's a very difficult act to follow. Jurgen Klopp and everything that he achieved as part of the turnaround, that the club went through over the best part of 10 plus years. But, do you feel that there is perhaps an argument to say that Moukoko is not necessarily convinced that Dortmund is the place to, pledge his allegiance, at least for the next couple of years?
Well, what is the Dortmund project exactly? That would be the question. Exactly what would that entail? What is it? What does it mean? Dortmund have let themselves down by mismanagement, some bad transfers, also bad sales that they've made over the years. And sure, they are a business and they've made a ton of money. They've also been a bit unfortunate with certain players who have come in and been injured. Obviously, Sebastian Haller in particular, really unfortunate, because I think that would have been awesome for Moukoko to be alongside Haller and scoring goals. And I think he would have been a good fit. Obviously, in the Bundesliga, he's already played for Frankfurt, but for Dortmund in particular. But what is the goal here for Borussia Dortmund? Dortmund are a selling club. Let's not forget, Dortmund are happy to finish second in the Bundesliga. I actually had a great conversation with Watzke, their CEO, and I had this conversation about maybe 6 years ago, sat across him face to face, and I said, when will you challenge Bayern Munich for the title? Because I'm sick and tired of watching Bundesliga every year being Bayern Munich winning the trophy. And I said it straight up. I was like, what's up? And he said, we want to challenge Bayern Munich every single year for the title. But financially, how can we do that? Financially, we have to keep ourselves alive. Financially, we have to make sure that, obviously our ownership group and, the money's coming in and they're all happy with the profit that they're making, which they have lost a lot of money through the pandemic. However, they are a great group of producing talented youngsters now. Dortmund have one of the best academy setups right now. They get the best players, and in many ways better than Bayern Munich, and Moukoko being one of them. They pulled him away from a great football club in Germany called FC St. Pauli. If you don't know who they are, make sure you go and check them out. Best club in the world as far as I'm concerned, certainly politically as well. But at the same time, they do that. Dortmund bring the best talented players in and give an opportunity. So for Moukoko to be unhappy now, why is that? It's because of the success he's had. With the German national team, you get an opportunity to go to a World Cup. You get an opportunity to play in the Champions League. He's still a teenager. He's still a youngster. So in many ways, I loved what Fabrizio said. Calm down. A lot of fake news going out there about Moukoko. I wouldn't be surprised to see him say, I'm very happy at Borussia Dortmund. I want to play. I want to score goals, because you've got to be careful where you go to. We've seen it before, Nigel, in the past where these superstars have gone and failed.
Let me just say this to add on top of that, Ian, what you just said. People have to understand money plays a big part. It may not be the player, because I don't know him. I can't speak for the young player himself. But like Ian said, the success he's had, the money that will be being discussed that he could make, that could play a part in how all this stuff is playing out right now. And it might not be the player, but it's definitely going to be the people around him who are going to be thinking about their own selfish needs ahead of the player. That happens a lot in football.
All right, let's get out of here. Producer Des has asked me to keep that under a minute. It was a 5-minute spiel, but let's get out of here. JJ, before we go, I know there's a full slate of games. Which one are you going to? I would imagine PSG, but which other game have you got your eyes on today?
Yeah, I'll be at PSG Angers. It's not exactly, perhaps the best fixture on paper, top against bottom, but, there is still plenty of talent on show. You're going to have Lionel Messi making his return to action post-World Cup. But if I had to pick a game, and I'm not going to bore you guys saying that I go and watch Lens as well, I think I'd probably go and watch Nice, because I'm curious to see how the team play then now that Lucien Favre is out of the picture. You got Didier Digard, if you guys remember him from his time in the Premier League, who's come in as coach. So definitely keep an eye on them.
I also got my eye on Marseille. They're away at Troyes. How do I say that? Troyes? 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 I've got my eye on that game as well. We're looking forward to seeing that one. All right, let's get out of here, guys. It's been a long show. Obviously, great to have Fabrizio Romano on here, and it's also great for us to just follow up Fabrizio with our own conversations as to what's going on around the footballing world. We'll be back again at it tomorrow with a weekend preview. We look forward to that. Please make sure you leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere else you listen to your podcast. Also available as video, so subscribe to us on YouTube. It is always great to catch up with the boys. Nigel, JJ, thank you so much as always. To everybody out there, thank you so much for tuning in. JJ apparently had to go to PSG quickly. I think, Nasser El Khalifi made the call. Yeah. Nigel, I think he said, "Come on, let's go."
Put up that comment by Rocco. How about that, Des? Put that comment up.
Oh man,
he doesn't want to do it, does he? Because we didn't talk about his crappy Atleti. There you go, Des.
There it is.
100% right.
Comment quickly, Nigel, before we go. I've already said the goodbyes. Comment quickly before we get out of here.
I have no comment. I'm just vindictive. So what I'm talking about makes sense anyway.
All right.
Just wanted to say that.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to House of Champions. We'll see you again tomorrow.